We get going on Saturday, but I wanted to make sure that we were going to be able to get all 3 games tomorrow included. So what we are going to do here is we are going to go look at every single game, give a quick preview, and we are going to combine this with our player prop video. Even if you are not on Underdog, even if you have no interest in player props, I honestly think it's very useful to look at it as more so projections, because if you're looking at the projection on your ESPN app or whatever it may be, it doesn't mean anything. ESPN has nothing to lose if they put out a bad projection. Whereas Underdog, if they put out a bad player prop, they are in line to lose a lot of money. I'm going to pick my favorite player props as we go game by game here. But of course, make sure you drop a like on this live stream. Subscribe to the channel if you play fantasy football. And if you want to check out any of these player props, you can always find the link in the description, in the comment section. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, and they are going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to 100. I know maybe it's a little bit confusing because you've seen us drafting lately, and I've been saying, oh, go sign up for Underdog so you can get in a draft with us. Yes, Underdog is the same thing as the drafts and player props. They have both of those. That's why they are the sponsor of the channel. That's why they are numero uno. But I think that should be it. Let's go through. Let's dive into this. And let's start it off with the first game this Saturday. Going to be the Indianapolis Colts and Minnesota Vikings. And we have to look at Kirk Cousins in a 1 p.m. slate and say, oh, Cousins is probably going to crush. Obviously, this Minnesota Vikings pass defense is absolutely garbage. The Vikings have allowed, I believe over 30 points per game over the past month. You're starting Jonathan Taylor. We don't even need to talk about it. And with the very good matchup, you're going to go through and you're going to have to start Michael Pittman Jr. as well. I've heard some people wanting to get cute and go through and start maybe a Paris Campbell or an Alec Pierce. Guys, it's the fantasy football playoffs, okay? If it is the fantasy football playoffs, don't get that cute with it. Don't think you can go through and start Paris Campbell, Alec Pierce, because it's that great matchup against the Minnesota Vikings. If you're that excited about them, go bet on them to have more than 38.5 receiving yards. Not going to be interested in any of the tight ends in Indianapolis. And then on the Minnesota side of things, super simple. We know you start Dalvin Cook. The Indianapolis Colts have been very bad against the run so far this season. And also you have the Vikings obviously favored in this game. You start Justin Jefferson. You don't have to think about that too much. Adam Thielen would be a desperate flex play. I'm more so looking at Adam Thielen as that low-end wide receiver 3, high-end wide receiver 4. KJ Osborne, not interesting, but TJ Hockenson at this point is the locked and loaded tight end. We had TJ Hockenson ranked as tight end 3 this week. And we did have George Kittle as the top 5 guy when people laughed at us in the tight end rankings video yesterday. But going over to Baltimore, it looks like Tyler Huntley is good to go. And what do we know about the Cleveland Browns? The Cleveland Browns have an extremely soft run defense. If we go through and look at what the Browns have given up as of late, it is, I don't want to say laughable, but it's definitely not great. This past week against the Cincinnati Bengals, you give up 96 rushing yards to Joe Mixon off of only 14 carries. Samaje Perine adds in 22 rushing yards and the rushing touchdown. Going into the Houston game, the Cleveland Browns smacked Houston. Dameon Pierce still got to 73 rushing yards. Going to what we had with Tampa, Rachaad White had 64. Going to what we had with Buffalo, these are the last 4 games, Devin Singletary had 86. The week prior, you had Jeff Wilson with 119. The week before that, let's just say the Cleveland Browns have a horrible rush defense. Let's just say J.K. Dobbins is a good running back. The Baltimore Ravens have a respectable offensive line, if not a great offensive line. So I actually like Dobbins to go for more than 51.5 rushing yards here. I will say if you're playing in a full PPR format, I can't call J.K. Dobbins a must-start player because he's not going to catch the ball out of the backfield. And, of course, this will still be a pseudo running back by committee. And I know everybody is panicking on Mark Andrews. I understand, yes, Andrews has been really bad. Coming from someone who drafted Mark Andrews in too many leagues, you still start him because all the other tight ends are horrendous. Now, going over to Cleveland, Deshaun Watson has not been great. I think we keep on benching Deshaun Watson until we see otherwise. Looking at Nick Chubb, right now the Browns are favored by about 2.5 points in this game. They have Chubb at 87.5 total yards. I think you just start Chubb, but someone that I not only want to be starting, but I also like this player prop will be Amari Cooper at 58.5 total yards. I mean, right now you have Amari Cooper, in my opinion, in a phenomenal spot. This game is in Cleveland. And I know this sounds laughable, and 9 times out of 10, I think if you are looking at home away splits, it's small sample noise. It's something that you shouldn't be paying attention to. But if we go through and look at Amari Cooper at home, ridiculous. New York Jets, 101 receiving yards. Pittsburgh Steelers, 101 receiving yards. Chargers, 76 receiving yards. New England, 46, but he gets there with the touchdown, 12 targets. Cincinnati, 131. Buffalo was on a neutral field, 113. Tampa, 94. Amari Cooper's home away splits are so drastic that I kind of feel like it may actually matter. And on top of it, I mean, you have them favored in this game. I like going through and looking at that Amari Cooper 58.5 receiving yards mark. I think he's a must-start guy as well this week. David Njoku must-start tight end. I think we had him ranked around the tight end 7, tight end 8 mark. I mean, with David Njoku, the second he came back and he was healthy, you knew you had to jam him in with how bad that tight end position is. But now, going over to our next spot, we're going to be looking at the Miami Dolphins, where we have Tua Tagovailoa in the snow in Buffalo. I mean, if we're pulling up an updated weather report, I usually don't like to look at the weather until we get a little closer to the game, because we know the weatherman is wrong very often. But right now, I mean, 7:15, looks like the chance of snow in Buffalo is hovering around 60%. Obviously, it's going to be cold as hell. It's Buffalo on December 17th. With Tua, if you would have a better option I'd like to avoid, I know everybody's looking to avoid Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. I mean, not everybody's looking to avoid Tyreek Hill, but everybody wants to avoid our guy, Jalen Waddle. I don't care. Unless it is a freaking blizzard, you play Jalen Waddle. Unless it is a blizzard, put the man in your starting lineup. Show the man some respect. When he's been healthy, when Tua's been healthy, he's been that locked and loaded wide receiver 1. But on the Buffalo Bills side of things, nothing to talk about. Start Josh Allen, Devin Singletary in a 3-man running back by committee. James Cook in a 3-man running back by committee. Not interested in either guy. Stephon Diggs, obviously a must-start name. Gabe Davis, just boom, bust, wide receiver in a non-PPR format, maybe somewhat intriguing. Not starting Gabe Davis. Really, the only guys you're starting in Buffalo are going to be Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, because they spread the ball out to an extreme, and I repeat, an extreme measure. But now, going over to KC, we're looking at a player that I was too low on to start the week. Isaiah Pacheco had 70.5 rushing yards, going up against the defense that has allowed the most points to opposing running backs this season. Y'all gave me crap for it in the comment section. Thank you for giving me crap so I could go through and reevaluate, and I can admit that I was 100% wrong. I was 100% too low on Isaiah Pacheco. He is a player that you need to start. Not saying to go and take the more than 70.5 rushing yards, but just make sure that he is in your starting lineup. That's 100% my fault. And we don't have any Houston lines up yet. Don't start any Houston player. For the love of God, do not have any Houston player in your lineup. Now, going over to Pittsburgh, we don't really know who the quarterback's going to be. I'm assuming it's Trubisky, but you're not really wanting to play anybody. If you have to play Najee Harris, you'll play Najee Harris because it's a fine matchup going up against Carolina. But Carolina's actually favored in this game. D'Onta Foreman, I know he's at 70.5 rushing yards. I actually don't really like it too much, knowing that with D'Onta Foreman, he was in a 3-man running back by committee this past week. He's not going to catch the football. So, of course, got to show him his respect, hook him once, but don't put him in your lineup if it's a full PPR format. Now, going over to Detroit and the Jets. I mean, right now, this is a pick'em game according to Las Vegas. The spread on this game is about 1 point in either direction, depending on the sports book that you're looking at. Amon-Ra St. Brown, obviously must-start name. I know a lot of people are going to be excited about starting DJ Chark. I'm not really. I think Jameson Williams expands his role, and it's a very tough, and I repeat, very tough matchup going up against the New York Jets. Garrett Wilson, must-start wide receiver. Phenomenal matchup going up against the Detroit Lions. And he's averaged almost 20 fantasy points per game in games with no Zach Wilson. Now, going over to Dallas, you start Lamb, and you start the running backs. There's not too much to discuss there. I know a lot of people are off of Christian Kirk. A lot of people are off of Travis Etienne. I'm actually still viewing both players as guys I want in my lineup, even with the very tough matchup against Dallas. What's very interesting is the Dallas Cowboys have the #1 defense against opposing tight ends this season. And Evan Ingram's coming off a monstrous week. I still think you start Ingram, but you got to lower your expectations. Miles Sanders, must-start name, going up against the Chicago Bears. Right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are favored by about 9 points. Long story short, get every Eagle you can in your starting lineup. Start Miles Sanders. Start A.J. Brown. I don't want to say start Devonta Smith guaranteed if Dallas Goedert plays. Obviously, we're still waiting on news with Dallas Goedert. We'll be giving updates with injuries later on today. But now going over to Chicago, we ranked Justin Fields as a mid-quarterback 1 this week, despite him being a 9-point dog, despite Justin Fields not being a good quarterback, in my opinion. But why do we rank him as a mid-quarterback 1? He is a phenomenal option in fantasy. 70.5 rushing yards is the projection. I mean, the man has more rushing upside than anybody else you're going to find. You have to play him just for the rushing yards. Side of that, not too excited about anybody going up against a very tough Philadelphia Eagles defense. But now looking at the Atlanta Falcons, who have been the second lowest team in passing yards this season, getting Desmond Ridder coming in, I'm going to be excited to see what happens. I'm going to be excited to see if Drake London can take that step forward. I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, it's a possibility. It can't be worse than Mariota, was only behind Justin Fields in passing yards this season. Going over to New Orleans, you start Alvin Kamara. I know he's been bad as of late, but it's a phenomenal matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. You start Chris Olave, phenomenal matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. I don't think you have to think about that too much. But with the New England Patriots and Las Vegas Raiders, I'm hedging. This is called the reverse jinx, okay? Y'all know Jacobs, my most drafted running back, my most drafted player in fantasy this year. Kenneth Walker, my second most drafted running back. Guys that I am all in on. I am really, really, really hoping they crush. Going up against the 49ers and the New England Patriots, the first week of the fantasy football playoffs. Are you freaking kidding me? Horrible matchup for Jacobs. I don't want to bet against Jacobs. It's called a reverse jinx, okay? We're really hoping he can overcome the matchup. And then going over to the Cincinnati Bengals, I mean, you play everybody you can. I'm actually kind of surprised to see Joe Mixon's only at 59.5 rushing yards. I know P. Ryan's somewhat getting involved. Don't worry about it. P. Ryan had like 4 carries this past week. And I know Tampa is sold to have some great rush defense. And yeah, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense was elite last season, was elite in 2020. It's not the same unit it was. And going over to the Tampa running backs, I'm actually kind of interested in taking the fewer than total yards with Rachaad White. I think these running backs kind of split 50-50. And if you look at this, they have Leonard Fournette at 55.5 total yards, whereas you have Rachaad White sitting at 72.5. I think this gap's going to be too large, and I'm not expecting these running backs to total 130 yards. So I would look to take the fewer than total yards on Rachaad White here. But now going over to the Tennessee Titans and Chargers, I think you want to be starting both Derrick Henry and, I'm sorry, not both. That's a bad way to put it. Derrick Henry, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen, Austin Eckler, Justin Herbert. Those are the starts. Please make sure you have the starting Los Angeles Chargers wide receivers in there. I mean, if you are going to be looking at the Tennessee Titans defense, they've allowed the most points to opposing wide receivers so far this season. So please make sure you're starting Keenan. Make sure you're starting Mike Williams. Not too interested in Gerald Everett now that you have these 2 top options back. But I think that should be it. Of course, if y'all want to check out any of these player props, link in the live chat, link in the description, link in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK, 100% deposit match. And you can get into some drafts with us on the live stream. We'll get in one tonight. But I think that's about it. We're going to be live later today with injury updates as well as live late tonight with the draft if you're wanting to get in one with us. But thank you again. Please, if you have not done so already, go down there, drop a like on this live stream. We haven't missed a day of streaming like 160. Thank you. Appreciate you. And hope we get to see you with the video later today.